morning. My name is Richard Wexler, and this is Caring in America, the podcast for caregivers and care recipients. We have a special guest this morning. I'm going to introduce him via his bio in a second. That's Keven Prather. Keven specializes in serving the complex needs of business owners through financial planning and business transaction exit planning. Using a total wealth planning approach, Keven's objective is to turn complex problems into actionable, understandable, and manageable steps by collaborating with business owners, their family, and strategic partners. He is a graduate of the University of Idaho, he is a certified family business specialist, and holds a certificate in business succession planning from the American College. He's also a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. He lives in Chardon, Ohio, with his wife, Kathy, and their 2 children. Good morning, Keven. Are you there?
I am, Richard. Good to talk to you.
You too. Welcome this morning. I hope the weather. Where are you sitting? What city?
I am sitting in downtown Cleveland, where our office is down on the river. It's known as the West Bank of the Flats in Cleveland. So,
got it. How's weather in Cleveland today?
It's beautiful. It's bright, sunny, clear blue sky, about 78 degrees, my kind of weather.
Very, very cool. So as you and I have kind of talked about, our goal is simple. We want to educate folks about the need to work with a financial planner like yourself to really prepare for 2 words, retirement, and a big word, cost of extended care. So let me ask you a few questions. Tell me about the importance when you're working with clients of planning for retirement.
Well, that's a big question you ask, and it really depends upon the seat to which the potential client is sitting in. Are they do they work in a career where they're professional? Maybe they work in manufacturing. Maybe they're a family farmer. But the most of the folks that we work with own companies of some sort, whether it be professional companies, manufacturing companies, some agricultural based companies. And the needs there are the same as everybody else that works for W-2 wages. Is they have to save enough money to be able to support their lifestyle when they no longer wish to work or can work. A large part of the society today, about the statistics are about a third of the American workforce will experience some sort of disability prior to them turning 65. They may recover, get back to work, and sometimes those disabilities extend all the way for the rest of their life. The challenge becomes, in the way we see it, is as planning for those catastrophic health issues that happen to us in retirement, whenever retirement starts, and that could be somebody could be in their 50s or they could be in their 80s. But it's really given our modern society and how our healthcare system is delivering care today. It's really planning for the economic impact of that, and that is a massive undertaking for even the most wealthy families out there today.
No, and I get that, and I appreciate that. So let me ask you another question. In planning for retirement, working with these folks, are there certain subject areas where you tend to concentrate that discussion?
Well, we deal in what we call holistic planning. So really, we're assessing the person's balance sheet, i.e., what makes up their total net worth, whether assets, whether their liabilities. We look at that, and we call that the financial position. We look at their tax situation. What kind of tax bracket are they in? What's unique about their situation? We're going to evaluate current debt, whether it be mortgage debt, credit card debt, business debt. Often a big topic today is student loan debt. So assessing the impact of debt on that balance sheet, we look at their adequate insurance protection, which is their employee benefits they may have at work or their health insurance, their property and casualty insurance, insuring their businesses, their homes, their cars, making sure all of that is correct, and then really looking at life insurance, disability insurance, and then really is making sure they've got a plan to deal with those potential costs they would experience late in life or whenever. And then to round everything else out, we factor that all into their estate planning, which may just be simple wills, healthcare power of attorney, living wills, and durable powers of attorney. But for some folks, especially high net worth and ultra high net worth folks, we get into some complicated trust planning. So we really are dealing with everything that makes up that person's overall financial world. If they own a business, we'll also incorporate all the aspects of their business into their financial plans.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I can see where this discussion about retirement can be extremely broad. And as you talk about, and as we realize, every individual is different. One thing I want to ask further about, you talked about extended care. In the world that I come from, obviously extremely important. People understanding that and understanding that little tiny word called cost. Is that really a conversation that you're having with most of your clients?
Richard, uh, we have that conversation with 100% of our clients, regardless of age. If I can get a young professional couple to have that conversation and then take action in planning for it, uh, they're going to be much happier when they're in their late 40s or early 50s. You mentioned earlier at the onset about caring for your parents. Um, I've we've been in that same boat. My wife's parents were divorced. We cared for her mother for over 11 years before she passed away. My father just passed away last January, and if it were not for the ability to pay for the care, uh, his last few years of life would have been a much less quality of life. So I'm very motivated to always bring up this conversation with clients and make sure that we've got a plan in place that deals with the cost of care. And it's not only cost of care, you could have all the money in the world. If you can't access the proper care, that's a whole nother dynamic that we probably won't get to on this call, but I'm sure you've covered it in prior podcasts.
No, and thank you, and I appreciate that. And that little tiny word that I've said it a few times now is cost. And one thing, I've been doing this for now almost 20 years, and it's what's frustrating is most people still haven't really put together a plan, which I love that you're doing. And we'll kind of talk about what age you would recommend starting to prepare for that. But again, this little tiny word called cost, I find, and I'm not sure if you find this with clients, that so many people have no comprehension that it is expensive as it is. Most people, they say they want to be cared for at home. So the cost of bringing someone in the home, there's the cost of taking someone to a beautiful assisted living, but all of those have costs. So do you get into kind of this specific conversation? Again, each individual is different with those clients.
Oh, absolutely. Based off of where they live, what type of care can they access in their city to which they live. To give you an example, my parents' costs, and this is all recent and new, was over $22,000 a month. That's 246,000 or $264,000 annually for the two of them. Uh, and prior to them going into assisted living, which was March of 2023, uh, their costs were somewhere in the $5,000 to $6,000 a month for caring for them at home. And so, you know, those are that's a large number that most folks just don't have the financial resources to pay for of financial instruments in order to cover that cost. But people need to start early, and they need to start understanding the immense cost that a potential catastrophic health issue might be, to keep them either in their homes for as long as possible, and or should they need to transition from home to assisted living and then into skilled care. uh, it's a huge issue. But the other thing that I think is super important that people have to address, Richard, is they need to have a friend, a family member who's willing to be an advocate for them and stay involved on every dimension of their care as they age. My heart goes out to all those folks that just simply don't have family that are willing to step up into that role. If it weren't for my brothers that we all participated, and my wonderful sister-in-laws, uh, to do this all, one person is a major burden. It is a major burden, which I know you understand.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate that. And what I try to let folks know, and you gave some specific numbers there, and as we've talked about a lot, people that are listening, these numbers are huge, and they're not something that most people are thinking about and planning for. And that's why I'm urging them to work with folks like Kevin to make sure that there is a plan, because we talked about care in the home. We've talked about care in a community like an assisted living. That third piece of care, and Kevin referenced this, is the family. And folks, most families have moved sometimes across the country, sometimes across the world. And then all of a sudden, mom has a stroke, dad breaks a hip, whatever it may be. Kids are flying in from these, the adult children flying in from everywhere. And this family is not set up to pay for care. Once that discussion finally happens, that should have happened a lot earlier, then which family member, as Kevin's talking about, is going to raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I'll take care of mom. I'll take care of dad." And that may be moving across the country, moving from outside the U.S. And usually they think that time frame for care is going to be short. Folks, it may not be. So, an additional question, Kevin, and we've kind of talked about this. Are you having this same type of conversation getting ready? So, someone gets in the workforce, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. They're 30, 35 years of age. They're starting to make money, that long term goal of retirement, but also understanding this may be loved ones, could be a grandparent, could be parents, and at some point themselves, this need for extended care. Is that a conversation you're having with younger clients?
Well, yeah, often the conversation results when we talk to mom and dad. We always talk to clients where we look up a generation, side by side, and down a generation. And so we try to approach all the family members that impact our client to make sure that their situation is well taken care of, because it would then impact the parent or couple of parents that are really the concrete that make up the infrastructure of that family unit. And so, but the answer to your question is yes, we're having those conversations, young, and we understand that maybe they're still paying student loan debt, they've got mortgages. It's the idea to put all the seeds in place so that as they age, they've got the right instruments in place that are quite frankly, much economically a smaller pill to swallow to save for these risks over a long period of time. But we have to have those conversations with those people, because we have clients right now that are taking care of parents financially as well as support wise, and maybe they have a special needs sibling that they also are tasked with providing oversight for and guidance for, where mom and dad are no longer legally capable or mentally capable of doing that. So this gets wrapped up when when you look in the mirror. I want to look back and say, did I do the best job I could at making sure I'm reaching out to all the family members that make up that family unit, so that my lead client, the person that hired us, is just rest assured that we've covered all those bases. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. Our relationships are all based off of deep amount of trust, and but it's a super important thing.
No, and I appreciate that, and that's very valuable information with that. And I know this can be true even with some of the older clients, but with those younger clients, do you find challenges? Do you find them potentially not accepting what you're talking about? They're thinking, well, my parents, kind of like my wife and I did, even though our parents were in their 80s, my parents are in their 60s. They're fine. They golf every day. Nothing's going to happen to them. And I know they've taken care of it. Are there challenges that you see sometimes in having that conversation with the younger folks?
Oh, absolutely. They look at you cross-eyed half the time. They say, "Well, why do I have to think about that now? That's going to happen sometime in the future." And that may be true. Let's knock on wood, and hopefully people live out their lives healthy and happy, and have a quick end. But in talking with underwriters and actuaries, they now are thinking that morbidity, as people's lifespans are expanding, is really 100%, which means 100% of us before our end are going to need some sort of assistance at the end of life. I forgot what the statistics are exactly, but the amount of medical cost in the last 3 years of life usually ellipses all the last 15 years of that person's life, of the medical costs
Wow.
they've incurred. And so this is a big financial impact. It not only hits you financially, it hits you emotionally, and also, what's concerning me the most is access. Is having You can have all the money in the world, but if you can't find qualified caregivers to provide the care, it's a game. It's a totally different game that you got to play at that point in time.
And that's so valid. I mean, we had in the industry, not me, but in like the home care industry, the assisted living industry, there was a shortage of caregivers before COVID. Since COVID, that's gotten worse. And a lot of home care companies sometimes have to turn away business because they don't have a caregiver to send out to the home. There's so many parts of this. It's understanding that whether you're 50, 60, 70, 80, or whether you're 30, 35, or even younger. I mean, this affected my kids. They were 11 and 7. So it's understanding all of that. Again, it's understanding, as we've talked about, the different types of care that are out there. It's making sure you can provide that caregiver, which kind of takes me to another question. Let's go up the scale again to some older folks. Kevin, I know we're having this conversation. I get it. Look, I'm just going to stay at home. I'm going to age at home. I'm never going to need any care. So why are we talking about this?
Well, if their goal is to stay in their home, there's a lot of things that we do ask that question. By the way, we look at the physical structure itself and start assessing the cost of modifications for the home, what that cost is, and how long it will take them to accomplish that. We look at, do they have a landscaper that's dependable that can take care of the landscaping? Who can plow the snow? How does the mail come up into the home? Who in their life, if they do situate into a situation where there's diminished capacity, who is going to be that responsible party or their trusted contact, as we say in our industry, uh, that we can call and rely upon to always be there to help make all these financial decisions. I want to say one other thing that really comes into play is that we are acutely aware of the immense amount of elder fraud and abuse that has occurred. It's estimated to be somewhere around a $3.8 billion industry in the United States today, just by people calling your mom, your dad, your grandparents, and scamming them out of their hard earned resources. And so we're even working with families to put processes in place that prevent that from happening. So there's a very involved playbook that goes into work once we know we need to take action to help protect somebody's financial lives as they age. It comes from assessing their homes, making sure they have enough financial resources, making sure that we understand what their estate plan is. Do they have the right legal documents in place? Having power of attorney, having healthcare powers of attorney, and living wills are so critically important. My parents are in hospice care. My dad died in hospice care, and neither one clearly stated prior to their health declines that they did not want extraordinary issues to be brought to bear to keep them alive. And having that done gives us as their children with these powers to advocate on their behalfs. It helps us make clear decisions, in terms of their ongoing health care. So this is a big issue, and unfortunately, most financial advisors are not well educated, or are they prepared to deal with the complexities that come into play. Uh, to even to the point where you've got those folks. I work with a lot of elder law attorneys. These folks are specialized in elder law and elder law care, and I certainly advise families. There's a tremendous amounts of resources uh, that are at their disposal if they do work in conjunction with an elder law attorney. That is definitely a best practice that I want to.
Now, this is fantastic information. You started talking about just everyday activities, who can bring in the mail. So you're at home. You've talked about you don't need any care. You're sitting in that easy chair all day long watching TV. Who's going to bring in the mail? Who's going to plow your driveway? Who's going to go to the grocery store? You can't. You can barely walk. But you know what? You're living at home by yourself, and that's what's important.
Exactly
But
right.
also, you talked about all the other aspects, and I really appreciated the legal aspects, making sure that estate plan is put together. Having these conversations, folks. If you learn anything from this conversation, it's we're not almost 19 minutes into this conversation. You haven't heard me bring up that dirty four-letter word called plan. But folks, you need to plan. As Kevin's talking about, there's so much just from who's bringing in the mail to the financial pieces to the legal piece to where's care going to be, who's going to provide that care. I mean, if you had, as we kind of get ready to wrap up, Kevin, as you had, if you could say there's an overall goal in working with these families for retirement and care if needed, what's that goal or goals?
We call it making sure that people can live a life of significance on their terms, and that's different for everybody, and it takes on a different context for everybody. And so the people want to be able to age with as much independence, dignity as possible, given their circumstances. And so that's our goal, is to make sure that that can happen. We don't do it all by ourselves. I work with a network of other professionals that are out there, but we're kind of the quarterback of that team, and we work with the families once we identify that an elder member of the family needs help. We kind of have an action plan already, because we've walked down that pathway already with so many other folks. But yeah, that's the goal, is so that people live a life of dignity, life of significance on their terms. And we certainly have examples of folks that are aging in place that are doing really great. Uh, they need some extra help. Uh, that help is there at the right time to make sure that they can continue to stay independent for as long as possible. That's our goal with our older clients, and also provide peace of mind for their families where their children might be living far away. That there's a network in place that are there to assist mom and dad. Doesn't mean they're not involved, but means that, hey, there's somebody there that can be there for them when needed, and that's super important. I will say one thing, because I know we're going to wrap up, is an example. We live up in Ohio. You have thunderstorms, you have bad weather, power goes out. We had an elderly client. The power went out. The main breaker box tripped. Uh, she went downstairs to turn the main breaker back on, and then slipped and fell in the basement, and was there for about 16 to 20 hours on the floor in her basement before a friend came over and was worried about her and found her in the basement with a broken hip. That was life threatening at that point in time. You know that signaled something to the family, that maybe the family waited too long to take action. And then I met this person after that event had occurred. So let's not wait till something bad happens to somebody to bring the right people in and get a plan put together. It should really start much earlier, when somebody's at least in their 50s. Start thinking about this and making sure to take action. If you could do it in your 30s, that's even better.
No, and I very much appreciate that. Folks, this has been a great conversation. We've covered a lot of information, and I plead with you, listen. I know there's so many things that go on in your life, as there was in my life 20 years ago, but I've said a lot of times, this whole process of taking care of aging parents and so on will never be easier. But when you do have a plan in place, and that plan is comprehensive about all the things that Kevin's been talking about, it will make it easier. And if I can pick up on something Kevin was talking about too, the earlier the better. With those adult children, grandchildren, like I say, that may be in their 20s, even in their teens, their 30s, start understanding this, folks. And if you're in your 50s or 60s or 70s and never had this conversation, come on, please. Kevin, as we do get ready to wrap up and folks want to reach out to you, is there contact information you want to give them?
Sure. They can reach me. My office direct is 216-592-7314. My email address is kprather, Prather, at financialguide.com, all common spelling. That's an easiest way to reach me, is either direct over the phone or via email. We just recently merged our firm with another firm in Pennsylvania, so we're going to go through a whole rebranding. There'll be links from our website, which right now is www.transitionnextadvisors.com, and the N in transition is also the beginning of next. So you should be able to find us if you search for us on the web.
Very good, folks. And if you want to reach out to me, as I say in every episode, got a comment, you got a question, you'd like to appear and have a conversation, the best email for me, eldered2023@gmail.com. And I want to thank Kevin again. And as I say on every episode, folks, until we meet again, have yourself an awesome day.